Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Diamond Hands podcast. Today I am really excited to bring someone that I've known for quite a long time in the industry, Kara McClanahan. She's an MBA, MHA, CMPE, and she is the CEO and managing partner for Aesthetic Practice Partners. And she's also the founder of Empower Esthetics, and she's a medical practice executive. So welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for having me. I'm so excited for the conversation today.
And you have a very unique experience because you've been an esthetician in your past so and then going to practice administrator, COO, and then to a corporate side executive, and you're the consultant that people call when their growth is stalling and they can't figure out why, and that's a lot of people. And so what we're going to kind of talk about is what you have learned across, of course, over 20 years in this industry, right? There's practice owners they're hitting their revenue targets, right? Their chair is full, they're exhausted, but they're still not profitable enough. And they're losing team members that they've trained. And many times they think that they need better marketing, which I hear all the time. Like, oh, we just need more patients, more patients. But you've been inside, hundreds of practices. So if you could start with like what's actually happening.
Yeah. So, obviously, the answer to that could be so many things, but I'll tell you the majority of the time is when we're busy, but we're not profitable, we feel like something's broken. The number one thing I look at is profit margins. People look at top line revenue, they look at patients coming into the clinic, but they don't pay attention to what they're actually taking home until they feel a problem. And it's usually a feeling before it's a fact on paper, before they really, really understand. So I think a lot of our practice owners are getting much more savvy, right? But think about how many people are trained clinicians. They're excellent injectors, they're excellent providers, but understanding the business side of the business can be challenging. And most of the time, we don't pay attention to it until, like I said, we feel that problem. We feel the heat, we feel the crunch. Again, top line revenue might look great, biz schedules might look busy. So that's the number one issue, is that we're not really understanding the numbers behind the business that drive what ends up in our bank account, right? That's the number one. Very close second is staffing, especially as you're continuing to grow. We add people, we add positions. We think we have such a great culture. We're friends with all of our providers. We love them as human beings, but we don't realize that our systems, our staffing systems, whether that's training, retention, and I don't mean client retention, I mean team retention. But even then, you can have an employee that's been with you for 10 years, but every time I go into a clinic, I hear, well, I wasn't trained, or I didn't know that we should do that, or I didn't know that this was part of the process. It didn't matter how long that person's been with the practice. So the top two issues I run into: business owners not understanding their numbers. They know what the numbers are, possibly, and they sometimes know what they mean, but they don't know how to use the numbers as levers to affect change. And then number two, staffing processes and systems.
Let's talk about your trajectory and how you even got into this position to be able to consult with practices and get them right. So if you could give us a little bit of your history there, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So you touched on it. I started as an esthetician. Funny story behind that is I really just want to be a hairdresser. So when I got licensed 30 years ago, it was because I wanted to be a hairdresser. And as it turns out, nobody wants me to cut their hair because I literally sucked at it. But when I started, you didn't have a choice between a full license. You were licensed as a cosmetologist, hair, skin, and nails. And so because I sucked at hair, I had to be good at something. And I started to obsess over skin. And because it made a difference in people. And because in hair salon, when you get a fresh cut and new blowout, all the things, you feel good, but that's temporary. But when you did something about your skin or how you looked and you glowed different, that lasted much longer. And that was really my impetus of really getting into aesthetics. At the ripe old age of 22, I ended up buying the hair salon that I was managing at the time. And I realized that didn't make a ton of money. So I got a side hustle, and I was an office manager for a medical practice. My two worlds just collided: aesthetics and beauty with healthcare operations. And I thought, oh my gosh, I love this. I'm so passionate about both. So I pursued my career in practice management, primarily dermatology, because I'm obsessed with skin. And that just grew from there on the healthcare operations side. So I spent the first 15 years of my career not behind a chair or treating patients, but managing medical aesthetics practices, primarily cosmetic dermatology and plastic surgery. And I'm a continual learner to this day. But I spent a lot of time looking for resources for myself to be a better practice administrator, a better coach, a better leader, a better understander of the numbers and the things. And I found that I was spending a lot of time coaching my colleagues. And I had grown practices. I was lucky enough to be part of a group that went from 6 to 60 locations. And we sold to private equity way before our private equity boom and anybody had any idea that that was a thing. It was back in 2010. And I found myself coaching and I loved it. I got so much gratification from educating because I had to jump those hurdles myself. I didn't have a Kara or one of these other great consultants that are out there by my side. And so that's how I jumped into consulting. I also spent the latter 10 years of my career on the industry side because I also started consulting with our skincare companies, breast implant companies, medical device companies, because everybody was launching post-sale support systems. Everybody was launching, their PDM programs. And now you have a capital rep, but you also have someone who's going to come in and help you with your practice. So I trained those companies on how to understand what actually works in practices. And I made the jump to the industry side, spent about 10 years as a VP of sales in medical device and skincare sales. So I share that because it really gives me a 360 view of our industry, very specific to both our practices and the inside, but also how our actual industry partners, manufacturers, companies impact decisions we make, support that we get, and really how we operate and deliver services to our clients and patients, whatever you choose to call them in your practice. So I think that that's what makes me unique, but also that's what makes me so passionate about what I do. So today I'm back to being an operator. I am the COO of Genesis Lifestyle Medicine. So I run a group of wellness center med spas as well as my consulting company. And it keeps me in the day to day, but also allows me to share my experience and learn from the clients that I work with as well.
That's a huge thing, having that kind of like 360 viewpoint of everything, because there are consultants who have only worked in the practices but haven't worked in the corporate side, and there's consultants who've only worked in the corporate side but haven't worked inside the practice, and those are completely different viewpoints, right? And you kind of bring, and I love what you bring there. This is why I've always been so impressed by you, because you actually bring both of those things to the table. And I think like you're one of those, like, you're not a hidden gem, but I kind of feel like you're a hidden gem, like, and it's just like more and more people need to know that someone like you exists who has been on both sides of the aisle, because I think it gives you a holistic view of everything.
Yeah, I love that. Intentionally stayed hidden for a while because I like to be Oz behind the scenes and impact. And then I realized you can only reach so many people when on your path and doing your thing. And that's why I started, speaking at some Unread conferences and being so much more involved in the industry. And I love it.
Exactly. And that's the thing. For those of you listening, and my girlies out there, or guys, but it's mostly girls, but it's just like, for those of you listening, it's like, that's one of the things. It's like, as we go deeper into our purpose in life, and I always say it comes from the Bible, you cannot hide your light under a bushel. Because if you hide your light under a bushel, there's a lot of people who are out there in darkness, proverbial darkness, and they're like, my goodness, if I'd only known that, Kara existed, or if I had only known that this person existed. And for a lot of people, that's going to be you. So you need to get on your soapbox.
Yeah, I'm working on it, girl.
Yeah, I got toot your own horn. Ain't nobody gonna toot it for you. So with that, let's go back to those first two original things that you said that you see, and let's kind of unpack those a little bit. So the first thing you said was that people aren't looking at their numbers. They don't understand how one is causation for another thing. And also they're not understanding staff processes. So let's go into the numbers first thing. People might be wondering, are you a CFO? Do you operate in a CFO capacity, or do you work alongside the CFO? A little bit more about that.
When I first started my company, Aesthetic Practice Partners, we came out gung ho and we wanted to be all things to all people. And like, we're going to do everything under our umbrella. And we are a one stop shop for operations. And we quickly learned that while it's good, I have obviously the experience of running a practice and the numbers, but I like to stay in my lane. I am excited about operations. I want to make things click and run. We do not do fractional CFO services intentionally because we really want to stay in our lane. So we partner with multiple different fractional CFO groups. So if somebody is in the need, we happily partner and or refer out. But I do help business owners understand their numbers. I always say you shouldn't be the one doing them, and you absolutely need to have a CFO in your list of partners for your practice on retainer if you don't have an in-house CFO or an accountant. But I will help them understand their numbers. Reviewing their
Yeah.
P&L and helping them understand their numbers is the first thing I do anytime I consult with a client. As a matter of fact, we don't take clients on until we do a comprehensive assessment of their practice because we want to make sure it's a good fit for them and for us, that we understand their challenges. And sometimes the answer is not me. Sometimes the answer is a CFO. Sometimes the answer is we're going to dive into your P&L. I'm going to teach you how to read your numbers, how to understand where the problem is. But then we're going to connect you with somebody that's going to help you either do the work or untangle, which often happens as well. So we do not do fractional CFO services. I look at my role as a consultant truly as a consultant. I'm there to guide you, educate you, and help you uncover and peel back those layers and understand what's going on in your business. And then put a plan in place to get to wherever you're trying to go.
Yeah. And many times that plan will be a CFO, right? Because I do
Yeah.
think that having a CFO. So for you guys listening, and you know, my former life was in finance world. It's just like, I do think like you're running yourself at a disadvantage if you don't have a bookkeeper, a CPA, and they're not the same thing. And if they say they're the same thing, just check that out a little bit. It's like, you know, they can have different divisions, but you know, a bookkeeper, a CPA, the CFO, because those are not the same thing either, right?
Absolutely.
In the second, people are like, oh my goodness, all these different professionals. And then having a consultant who can really help you, you know, understand like which other professionals to bring in, who's reputable. Because, you know, that's another thing that I love about, you know, longtime consultants in this industry is that you have such a great network, right? To bring
Right.
people in for that.
Yeah. Well, and I intentionally named my company Aesthetic Practice Partners because not only do we want to be a true partner to our practice and our clients, there's a big difference between being a consultant and being a partner. And we choose to be a partner with our clients. And then the second part is we do have deep industry network relationships, and we know how to pair a business with the right support system. And let's be honest, any industry has this, but there's a lot of options out there, right? Just like everyone keeps saying there's a med spa on every corner, there's a consultant on every corner, there's a marketing company on every corner, there is a device company that sells the same thing, you know. So you really have to have the right partnerships in your practice for success. So helping practices untangle who that is. Even if it's skincare lines, I walk in the door and I see, you know, I hear I don't sell skincare. I don't sell skincare. Retail's such a problem for us. But you have 17 lines. Your staff is uneducated on the differentiations. You have 9 different cleansers and 14 different SPFs at all different price ranges. And you wonder why you're only selling the $34 one. So again, helping them determine what's the right fit for the practice. What brand matches my brand? Which brand matches our identity? And what should we be offering our clients? So we truly are a partner and bring in the right partners. And again, like you said, that's the benefit of having a consultant that's a partner to help you guide you, because otherwise a sales rep walks in the door and then every shiny new penny that walks in is going to bring that windfall of patients, is going to elevate your brand. And all of a sudden, if you just bring on that device or you just bring on that skincare company or that product or that new treatment, it's going to, like, you know, the field of dreams, you build it and they will come. And we know that's not reality, but those sales reps are really great at convincing you otherwise. So having the right partner to guide you even in those decisions and create the right partnerships in the industry is super important.
Yeah, and the only time we'll build it and they will come is if you're Mary Kay and Ashley. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
Anything they
like
touch turns to gold.
exactly. I'm like, most of us don't have the brand equity of being on TV for 15 years of our lives in the consciousness of
Right.
America. So you got to build and talk about it. So,
Yep.
so
Yep.
it's intense.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and so with that, it's like, so what would you say is the kind of guiding thesis that a practice owner should use to kind of guide your decisions? Because I know that I speak from things from very much like, on the brand level, where it's like, you need to understand your mission, vision, and your values in order to do anything else. Because I always believe if you don't know yourself, and that means your company, I say your company is a
Mhm.
different person than you. If you don't know what your company is and what it stands for and where it's going and what's going to govern the way it operates, it's hard to understand. So can you talk a little bit more about your approach to that?
Yeah. So, very similar. We always start with brand identity, culture identity, and what is your vision for your practice? If you start with the end in mind, it's easier to create a roadmap to get there. And so we do that
Mm-hmm.
with every single one of our clients. Who are you and who do you want to be? And how is who you are and who you want to be different today? And so I think that starting with that, again, that, like you said, not just letters on the wall, but how is your culture woven into the fabric of your operating systems? And that drives things like your training. That drives things like your product decisions because it has to be aligned. You're treating a specific patient demographic. And let's be honest, as last I knew, every single human being has skin. So every single human being is a potential client or patient, whatever you choose to call them, but you don't want every single one in your practice, right?
Yeah.
There is someone that fits your brand. And that's why there is, low, medium, and high price ranges in practices. I don't want to call them budget or supreme, but let's be honest, that's what it is. And it's okay if that's who you are. If you want to be a volume based practice and you want to be known for having achievable, cost effective pricing, not low pricing, because you want to serve the masses and your client is the college girl, the soccer mom that doesn't have a lot of disposable income, the waitress that still wants to look good but doesn't have a six-figure salary. That's okay. Own that. Be that. That's your patient demographic. That's who you want to serve. So yes, your prices are aligned with that. And then you build in your operating systems around that. If you want to be luxury, I have an amazing client on the East Coast who intentionally told me from day one, I want a market analysis and I want my prices 10% higher than the highest one in our market. My marketing needs to be so elevated that I'm only attracting patients that would die if I had to carry Prada because, Hermes is where it's at. And that's who they want. And that's okay. Build that into your operating system. That means that you're going to have top tier practitioners. You're going to have hospitality masters, not front desk concierge. You're going to have top tier everything. Build that into your operating system. So I say start there, but it really knowing who you are and having the end in mind drives how you get there. Most practices I work with have mission, vision, and culture written down in their employee handbook. They say we're very, very culture driven because you give good PTO, you pay good wages, and you have monthly meetings where you buy everyone Starbucks. That's not culture. Those are little teeny tiny things. And how does that translate into how you treat your clients? Most of them have no idea what culture really means and how to operate, how to weave that into their operating system. So I think starting with the end in mind, what do you want to be? What's your goal? Like if you're a esthetician in a salon suite and you want to sell to private equity in 5 years, you have a lot of work to do, but you know what your goal is and you know what you're building to get there. And it's possible. I have a client who was a single salon suite esthetician who within 5 years sold a fully built out brick and mortar med spa to private equity for a very high multiple. And now she educates for a living. She doesn't do skin for a living and she loves it. And it's achievable, but you have to know what the goal is and you have to build that into who you are. So it's not just about your SOPs. It's not just about knowing your numbers. It's about what is that goal? Who are you? How do you differentiate? We all say this. What's your value proposition? Sell that from day one, but you have to sell it to yourself first. You have to sell it to your staff second, and you have to build on it.
What you said right there, I think is key, is that you have to sell it to yourself first, then your team second, and then invariably that sells it to the world. Because it's like, it's one of those things because there's a lot of incongruency, as you had mentioned. It's like you can't say you want to be a luxury practice, but in your own personal life, you're not doing anything to treat yourself to luxury, right?
Hmm.
Because luxury is not just buying something expensive. I think that's the least important thing. I think it's a state of mind, it's a calmness, it's a nervous system
Hmm.
calmness. When you go into, for example, the breakers in Rhode Island, and in your in these mansions or what have you, like what you feel is a sense of calm and reverence and beauty, and it makes you think about something bigger than yourself. And that's
Absolutely.
actually what luxury is, you know? But if
Hmm.
something's chaotic and disorganized, and that goes down to how you run your personal life, even how
Hmm.
clean you keep your house. If those things aren't congruent in your personal life, it's going to be very hard to recreate those things on a business level, because our businesses are
Hmm.
essentially representations of us.
I couldn't have said it better.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. And most people don't understand that. They want to build something that they don't have. And so they're really trying to build the image of, and it's so much harder to get there
Mhm.
when, and again, I don't mean have because you don't have luxury in your life or you don't have, whatever the economic status is. That's not it. It's building something that's aligned with who you are. And that's exactly what I
Yeah,
was talking about. It's very hard to build something when it's not aligned with who you are and what you want.
exactly. And that's the biggest thing, because it all comes from the inside first. Anything that we see on the outside that's beautiful started in the mind of someone who had a beautiful mind.
Yeah,
that's that's
absolutely.
where it all starts. And it's almost just like I'm like everyone, before we go into business, get therapy.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
I think
Well,
that's the
first off,
key
anyone who
for
takes on the
all of us.
challenge of building their own business
Yeah.
from scratch probably needs a little therapy to start.
Mhm.
And then along the way.
Well, yeah, we're all a little crazy. We're all a little crazy. I'll never forget, yeah, we're all a little crazy. I never forget when I used to drive Uber or what have you when I started business like years ago, like in 2014. I was driving Uber to make, but I was always like, I'm gonna make it. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be great. And I always like was so friendly to my Uber people. And I still sometimes look at the reviews that I got, because I'm like, that's who I am right now. But I knew it back then too. Let's talk about staff processes a little bit, and what type of processes should every good business have to make sure that they're creating a stellar team member experience from day one.
Yeah, I love that. So I always say we have to be as cognizant as of the experience that our team has than we are as our patients and our clients. We worry so much about patient experience and all the things that they see, touch, feel, hear, smell in the clinic. We disregard the people that are actually delivering that experience. I think that's the number one disconnect is how important it is to focus on your team. And I think that starts at recruiting. If I'm being completely honest, most people think of staff training starting when you hire someone and what happens when they step in the doors. It starts at the recruiting phase. Again, going
Mhm.
back to your identity, your brand, and making sure that you're aligning your recruiting efforts with those people. I know that it's really challenging when we have an open position and we need to get someone in that position to be either performing or servicing our clients. But rushed recruiting is number one
Mhm.
problem in that we're trying to fill our seat. So we're choosing candidates that really truly aren't aligned with who we are, or we don't dig enough to understand if they are. So I think having a multi layered recruiting process is essential. I love all my friends out there in recruiting. This is not a slight on recruiters, but when clinics use recruiters, you need to spend time educating them on who you are because recruiters don't know you. They don't know your look and feel besides what they see on your website. They don't know your culture and how it's actually delivered from within the practice. So it's very hard to have them align candidates for you. I think that that's a big problem is that you really, really need to start at the recruiting phase. So your job posting has to be very relevant to not only the position that you've posted, but also to attract the candidate that you want. So I think that that's really, really important to start there. And as a big miss, So making sure, again, job postings, that you're looking in all the right places. Don't just throw an ad on Indeed and like buying a new product, hope they will come, because that's not reality. So recruiting it within your network, I always say connect with your reps. They know everyone. They know the who's great, who's looking, who's a challenge. And also spend time finding the right person. So don't reactively fill positions. If you've built a good culture and you're backfilling positions because someone has been promoted, or maybe they've moved on for life choice reasons, not because there was anything challenging going on within the office, give yourself time to recruit and find the right candidate. And if you do have an immediate turnover that you have no choice, have a plan. You should have an operating plan. So I always say staff one man up. Everyone should be cross trained, and you should not run so lean that you are paralyzed if you lose a staff member. And so cross training can be a double edged sword sometimes as well, because if it's everyone's responsibility, it's no one's responsibility. So remember that you can't dilute accountability in job descriptions, but cross training for education not only helps you fill gaps if you have one man down, but it also helps people understand what others' roles are. So when I train, if it's a front desk team member, before they sit down at the front desk to learn their job, we have them shadow the back office, the clinic, the client experience, what happens after they leave your domain, because now they know once they step into their domain and their role, why it's so important to make sure those consents are signed, this education piece is given, this experience is displayed. So having a really robust training is more than just showing them how to do their job. It's more than just SOPs in a book that you run through once. It's continual learning. As a matter of fact, there's a study out there somewhere that says it takes the average adult 90 days to learn 30 to 50% of their job. So think about that. If it takes the average adult 3 full months to really grasp, learn, and retain 30 to 50% of their job, you need to make sure as an employer that you are really putting in the right training systems and that you're focusing your training on the most important things first. We have a tendency to train on the small, insignificant things. And it also obviously depends on the position within the practice. But if at 90 days, that's when they really understand their job, then there needs to be consistent coaching, training, accountability, skill set checks along the way, so we know what gaps they're going to have. And clients, employees, team members, new team members, as well as existing team members need to have the right support system in place. It's our job as leaders to hire the right people. So make sure your vetting processes are right, give them the tools, support, and training to do their jobs, and then allow them to do their jobs. And I think that when you really have a robust system to do that, and get those things in place, you have higher caliber employees, better client experiences, and it really creates a stronger retention in that first 90 days. When I walk into practices and I hear all the time, oh, that new girl that we hired 3 months ago, 2 months ago, even 6 months ago isn't working. You know, something's broken. She's not getting it. I go, well, how did you train her? And I will tell you 90% of the time, they left out critical components of her training. They didn't weave in expectations and accountability, culture, thermometer checks, how are you actually doing into the process? They showed them how to log in. They showed them their job description. They had them shadow somebody for a day or two. And by day 4, they're answering the phones.
That's terrible.
And remember what I just said, there's a psychological study that says the average adult takes 3 months to learn 30 to 50% of their job. And in 3 months, if you didn't give them the systems and they're only grasping 10%, that's our fault. That's our responsibility as leaders. That's not on them. And so I think understanding how people learn, communication styles, and having a very robust system, that is the key to retention. Employees that feel valued and supported are going to stay with you long term. And training and education is a forever thing. It's ongoing, but almost every single unhappy employee traces their experience back to their onboarding.
It's so funny.
Even at year 1.
Yeah, well, year 1, I mean, if you're any self-respecting person and you hate your job, you're going to be out within 6 months. That's just how it is. And you have to be mindful of the ones that they hate their job, they're still there for two, they're just dragging the culture down. And that's another thing altogether.
1000%. That's a character issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing we're not going to get into right now. But so like with that, it's like, from a practical standpoint. So let's kind of map that. Let's map it for a patient care concierge, right? Or
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a business owner and I'm putting out my ad, right? So first of all, what should they be putting? Okay, let's paint the picture of the practice. So the practice is a premium practice, not luxury. They don't charge the top, but they're premium. They give a good experience. Great people work there, or have you. They really don't have. They've never really put together anything, but they're like, okay, we want to hire a new patient care concierge to take care of our patients or whatever, answer the phones. What should they be putting in their job posting in order to attract people? So keep in mind that in this practice, many times they do have to stay late, logging Aspire rewards or Allergy rewards or whatever, and sending out maybe treatment plans for the people who came in that day, so they can, so that's something that is in their culture, and they want to make a kind of an expectation that you might have to stay a little bit later sometimes. How would they put that in there?
Yeah. So when you address things like hours, so I always say build on your core values. So at Genesis, integrity and innovation are two of our big core values. So whenever we're putting job postings out there, we put the core value that is most aligned. We want everyone to have these core values that is most aligned or most important for that role. So in what you're describing, integrity and work ethic, we want a team member who's going to go the extra mile, understands the day doesn't end when the clock hits 5 o'clock, that we're here to support our clients and our business until we get the job done, and have that conversation. So most people, and ask the questions. It's more about what you're asking and how you're talking about it in the interview process. So I think being transparent with expectations. So in the job posting, post again your core values. I don't think it's super important to post like the details of the job. I think it's important to post who you are. We are a premium medical aesthetics practice that offers, aesthetic, cash pay aesthetic treatments to, clientele in the whatever market. We pride ourselves on whatever it is that we pride ourselves on. And we're looking for a new team member that's going to make a difference to the experience every single client gets when they walk in the front door. Our patient care concierge is our customer service central, must have a hospitality mindset, and understand that work ethic and integrity are some of the most important values to us. Our next team member understands that, the job isn't over when the clock hits 5, but we are here to get the job done and support our providers, our clients, et cetera. I think, again, all the mishy-mashy, the fun stuff but put the words out there. Because then when you interview them, you say, in our job posting, we said that work ethic and integrity were some pivotal key attributes that we were looking for. Tell me what those words mean to you and how that resonates in your work ethic. What does it mean to you when I say, we don't stop at 5 o'clock, we are here until the job gets done? And, are you committed to understanding what that means if you accept this role? I think having those conversations, I have culture conversations. And so one of the tricks that I tell all of my clients is take your core values, take the job description, take your website link, throw it into AI and say, give me culture based interview questions for this role to help me understand how this person's going to match my culture. AI is wonderful for us these days. We used to have to make this stuff up ourselves and do it. Think about that. It'll give you questions that are not like why did you leave your last job? What are you looking for in your next position? What does customer service mean to you? What does that mean? Ask questions about them. How do you like to be managed? What did you not find in your last work home that made you look for a new role? It's really important to understand who they are. So again, attracting a premium candidate for that position is important. And it's all in more about what you ask versus what you put in the job posting, but it starts there.
Yeah, because it all comes back to, like you said, they need to know what ideally their culture is. They need to understand what their values are, and they have to be living them, because it is
Mm-hmm.
one thing to say all these things and put things in the AI or whatever, but if you're not living them, it's not going to make a
Mm-hmm.
difference. And
1000%.
I'm going to, I could be blue in the face if I could turn blue. That is the main thing. It has to be you as a person who
Yeah,
espouses those things. And if you don't, you just get out or get a business coach or a life coach or something, because you need to embody everything that you're expecting of other
yep,
people. You have to. And
absolutely.
so with that, so okay, great. So we have that process. We have great questions. The candidate comes. They're asking great questions too, because I think that's important as well. So people who are
Yeah,
duds and not asking questions, they're going to be duds on the phone too. I'm sorry,
yep,
but like, they're asking great questions. Then, you know, comes to their first day experience. Let's talk about that. Say you go through everyone, you winnow it down, you find your winner or whatever. Let's just say hypothetically they accept. you know, what do you think is the ideal training season, the ideal first day experience, the ideal trajectory? We're just talking about patient care, concierge care,
yeah.
a trajectory, so that they know that there's a vision here. I'm not just going for just forever, but maybe I am. But what is it? Like, just paint
Yeah.
a fake scene.
I love that. So a lot of those questions should be discovered in the interview process too, right? Like understanding where they want to go. And I will also just throw in one comment to layer onto the recruiting. It's never one interview. It's a multi-step process too. So we actually have a 3 to 5 step process in our clinics, which are all done in a short period of time, because anybody can say all the right things on day one. And we also tell them that it's their opportunity to interview us. So again, have a multi-step process, and we can spend a whole entire podcast just talking about recruiting. So I'll move on to the first day experience. But again, there are multiple steps in between there. First day experience. Number one, it's like the first date, right? Even though you've made it through all the interviewing process, this is the first real date. You were just like chatting on the dating app before, and now you're having coffee. And so nobody should be working on their first date. The reality is, in order for them to understand their role, they have to understand how the practice works. So, as I said before, especially a patient concierge, they should not know like everything from, in plastic surgery terms, cut to suture, but just about they should know how to explain it. So, your first day, and I would even venture to say your first week, should be learning the practice. So if you're using some kind of like LMS, like a learning management system, and you have, or like a Trainual or something, and you have video didactic, that's what their first week is. Their first week is shadow the front desk, shadow the clinic, learn the products, treatments, and services that you're going to be selling in your role. I assign everyone, I actually created like a scavenger hunt game that creates them to do the learning themselves. So I think number one, like that first day to 3 days minimum, but first week if you can, they're absorbing everything about the practice. They're observing your culture in action. They're getting to know each one of the team members, communication styles, seeing your culture in action through other consultations and treatments, etc. That's so important. And then the systems. Systems is the second thing that bogs every new employee up. So yes, you could have came from ABC Med Spa, but now you're at XYZ Med Spa. The EMR is different. Maybe we used Zenoti over here. Now we're on aesthetic record or patient now, whatever it is. Don't forget that it takes time to learn the systems. So spend a lot of time training on systems. So when they step into their role, the systems are not what's tripping them up. Because when you're throwing new information at people, our brains can only hold so much. And I consistently hear things like, oh, she couldn't even schedule an appointment right, or the quotes are wrong, or this isn't being done. Spend the time on the systems. Those are the big things. And then next is adults learn by action. So you have to get in there and start working, but mocking through things. We discredit role playing a lot. It's not the funnest. I hated it in sales when I was a sales rep and kind of being trained in sales, but you learn so much from conversations or role playing with your clients. So in any med spa, any client that I work with, every new employee gets a consultation on themselves. They see what the process looks like. They understand from the beginning all the way through to the end what a comprehensive treatment plan is, what follow-up looks like, So that's another thing that we integrate into all new team members' process is they themselves become a client for a day. That doesn't mean they're getting every single treatment, but they're getting the experience that a client gets. When we put them in the system, they see what our automations look like, our marketing looks like, our reminder system looks like, what the patient facing experience is, so that they then understand what their role in delivering it is.
Yeah. And I think what you said is key. You have to role play. I mean, anyone that's not doing role playing, it's like, any of those, if you're a musician like I am or have you have to practice before you do your recital. You have to practice and practice and
Absolutely.
practice and practice. And all that work done in the quiet is what comes out when they come into the real patient interaction, which is.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I love what you put out there just because, and also, guys, those of you who are listening, if you're hiring for someone, it's just like, don't wait until you need the position. I'm a big believer, and I believe the same thing with network. You should be building those resources before you need them. Because I don't know if you heard this concept, but there's three types of relationships that people have in their lifetime. And I know like Arthur Brooks talks about this a lot, but it's like you have your intimate relationships, you're like your hubby, my hubby, like
Yeah.
our friends, right? And those are our close people. Like they need us, we're dropping everything, right? And then you have people who you just have fun with. And that's a lot of us at conferences. You have fun with these people, but you're not talking to
Yep.
them outside the conference, only a little bit,
Right.
because whatever, it's fine. And then you had people where you just know it's like, okay, I'm giving you something, you're giving me something. It's kind of a transaction. We're good, but it is a natural end. There's no hard feelings. It's just what it is, right? And those are the
Right.
three types of relationships that we have. And over the course of life, that third type of relationship is actually the most that we're going to experience. And that's not a
Yeah.
bad thing. So as an employer, guys, those of you who are listening, it's transactional. You're
Mhm.
giving them money. They're giving you, and they're going to give you service for as long as they want to work for you, right? And so build that deck of people. So I don't know what you think about this, Kara.
Yeah.
But in my belief, I think you should be scouting for people all the time, and almost like a baseball team, right? They build their bench. So
That's
if
exactly the
anything
term
goes
I would
wrong,
use.
you have 10 people that you're like, if I offer them top dollar, they're going to leave wherever they're going to come to me.
Absolutely. So I could not agree more with that. As a matter of fact, I literally just did an event at the Cowboys Club, which is the private club for the Dallas Cowboys owned by the owner. I did a speaking event there last week, and their server was so outstanding that
Mm,
I did not leave without giving her my phone number and telling
mm,
her she's not from med spa, she's a server, she does events at Cowboys Club, but the hospitality mindset was so excellent. I don't have a position for her, but number
mm,
one, you think about that is could there be somewhere in my organization that I'm just not seeing, or could this person be someone that I can be in contact with and keep her in mind? She knows I have my eyes on her, so that when
yeah.
something comes available, so like you said, you should always be building your bench, especially larger multi-location practices. For some reason, I feel like they have staffing needs more often than not. They also obviously have a different level of resources. So if you're using any kind of like PEO, professional employment organization, that you can literally be posting consistently. If you have multiple locations in multiple cities, we do that at Genesis. We, in all of our major cities where we have locations, 23 locations, we have job postings for our main positions ongoing, ongoing.
Mhm.
And because we're building our bench and we're doing interviews and we're identifying candidates and we're saying, hey, I don't have anything available right now, but these jobs do come up often and or as we expand. And we always look to build our team from within, right? So like you said, what is that trajectory? You should always be thinking about where could this person fill a role? I always tell the story about how when I was a practice administrator,
Mhm.
I was interviewing a receptionist. And in our team, we had 5 patient care coordinators, but we had receptionists that truly were, you just check patients in and you just check patients out. Your customer service central. They don't even answer the phones at the front desk. And I was interviewing for someone for that role. And of
Mhm.
course, I asked that stupid question, what do you want to do 5 years from now? Which isn't really that stupid, but like everyone asks it, right? And I said, what do you want to do 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself in an organization like this? And she's like, well, I want your job. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And she says, that's not my problem. I want to be in a position like yours. I don't care what you're going to do. Like, that's not my problem. But you asked me where I see myself and where I want to be. So that's what I want. And at first I was like, who does she think she is? And I was inclined to be like, no, I'm not going to do this. But I actually was kind of like, I kind of like that. I kind of like that. Fast forward, it's 2026. That was in 2013. Guess what she's still doing 10 years later? She's doing the job that I had. She is the practice administrator overseeing the surgery center, the med spa, and the blended plastics derm practice. And she started out checking people in and checking people out, but she had a vision. She wanted my job. And me as a leader, have you ever read the book Multipliers? I love this. It's our job to create future leaders. The impact that we have is how we can build people and create future leaders. So I truly believe in that. Anyone who's listening, grab the book Multipliers. It talks about how you create future leaders in your organizations. And I really, really, truly believe in that. And I think about that. My job was to create an environment that she could grow and succeed and become something that she walked in having no experience doing. And I am so grateful that I can literally look back and say, 10 years later, she's still doing that job when I left, because I did my job as a leader and we had a trajectory and a plan. But consequently, I've seen it happen too, where people have been moved out of positions because they're so good at what they do, and we give them a promotion into a different position. And the reality was that new position wasn't what was aligned with who they are. So the perfect example is moving an excellent front desk person into a patient care coordinator or patient concierge role. And they were really good at the front desk, but now the pressure of sales and numbers and different goals and a totally different patient interaction comes into play, and they fail at that second job. I've seen that happen where the best front desk person was promoted and then ultimately let go because they weren't performing in that new role. So you have to remember, a desired trajectory is not always the goal. You have to build your people up, but also you have to take into consideration who they are, what fits with their natural cadence and their work ethic and integrity and all of those things.
I really love that whole, and that whole entire like thesis towards like how you hire, and like also ensuring that you're putting people in the right seats. And I think this is really important because every practice, I don't care what practice you are, the skeleton is going to be the same. Just like, as a human, our skeletons are all the same. We might like do our hair a little differently, like do a little different lipstick or whatever, but the skeleton is the skeleton, and the skeleton is the same. So it's like, a person who's a practice administrator is going to have a different makeup than a person who is a great front desk person, than a person who is the surgeon or whatever. It's just like they're completely different mindsets. And I think, what's important is like you said, just like you do need to map the role and what type of personality is best for that role. And I know for me, I personally love something. I don't know if we've used it before, but I love the Kobe assessment. The Kobe assessment measures your cognitive skills. So like how you approach work. So like, for example, my operations manager is the complete opposite of me. She likes to know the facts first, and she likes a lot of detail before she jumps in, right? So that's the type of person who compliments me. Where I'm a visionary. I like to see 20 years out, and then I'm like, all right, and I can like go forward with the vision. But execution, I need someone to help me with that, with certain things, right? But I know that about myself. So it's like, mapping those things in the organization. And then if you do that, say, okay, practice manager, their Kobe is going to be a person who's like, they like this first or whatever, and then they work like this. So when you're hiring someone, if you're giving them Kobe assessment, you say, oh, based on how you operate, how you approach work, it's not a good or bad thing. This might be a good role for you in the future. And some people, they don't know themselves enough to even know where they would be good. But like you said, I love the whole leadership development that you talk about. Sometimes when you see something in someone and you know they can do it, you just gotta, give them a little bit more to see if they can actually take it on. And some people become so surprised, right? It's so cool.
Right. Yeah. And I think that again, so I don't know that one, but I use predictive index a lot. And so, but the other point of what you brought up, which is a really good point, is hire for what you don't have. And so you can't, my company would not exist if there were 10 Karas. Trust me, that would not work. right? But you hire for the skill sets and the personalities that you don't have. We fill each other's gaps. And I think that that's also part
Yeah.
of building a team. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have a tendency to look for people that we see ourselves in, or we're like, oh, we like her so much because she's got this, this, and this.
Mm,
And that's great if she were looking for a girlfriend, if you were looking for, a pedicure buddy, but you're not. You're looking to build a team and a
mm,
business. And so you have to find people that are going to work symbiotic together and
yeah.
take into consideration all of your team members, not just yourself. I think that that's another big miss when we're hiring and building our team is we think about what we
Yes.
like, but what about your nurse injector? What about your practice manager? Whatever it is, you have to think about the whole culture of the practice. And I think that that's been the theme of our conversation.
Mhm. And I love that for someone who's starting their practice, right? And they need to know what they should do first. Where would you tell someone to actually start?
Just map your vision and literally like map out the entire experience. That again, your vision, process map your vision. What do you see? What do you want when clients walk in the front door? What do you want their experience to be when they're inside your practice? And what does that vision look like? So yes, you have to have SOPs and steps for every clinical treatment and those type of things, but you have to have processes and systems for inside as well. And also process map the team experience. So from each position, what is your vision for their role? How are they impacting the patient experience, and process map it? The other thing that I would say is recognize that we all don't know everything, and you have to have a mentor, a coach, an
Yeah.
advisor. That doesn't necessarily need to be a paid consultant. I know that some of us, it's not an easy thing to take on, especially when we're starting a business, but have a mentor, have a coach, another business owner, and someone that can help look at your vision from the inside out and fill the gaps of knowledge.
I love that. That's such great advice. And I'll just quickly add to that, guys. There is SCORE mentorship. It is free. So if you are a new business owner, SCORE mentorship is free. Because like I said, the skeleton is the same. And
Mhm.
someone who's been successful and who's retired and doing SCORE is very happy to help you. If someone
Yeah.
if someone else, if you don't have someone in the industry right away willing to give you advice for free, because but that's great. So, Kara, thank you so much for your expertise. And, everyone in the show notes, we're going to put how you can find Kara and her companies and, her on social media. So, Kara, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for having me. It was so much fun.
Of course. Until next time, leave a review if you like this episode. Okay, bye, guys. Want more clarity like this? Join the Branded Practice newsletter community. I write about strategy, systems, and brand leadership straight to your inbox. Go to diamondhandsmedia.com to sign up. And if this episode hit, share it with someone still building without a brand. This is the Diamond Hands Podcast. Thanks for listening. Now go lead.